There we go.
There
Yeah,
we go.
they can have any of this. This is public information. Me and my coaching team built this for you. So basically, if you want it shared, you can do whatever you want to with it.
Cool. So we'll get this. We got to find a good way to get it out. Sometimes spam filters and stuff get mad when I start sending attachments. So we'll probably get all this stuff hosted on our website somewhere and get it out to you guys. But yeah, so just wanted to thank Chris for joining us. Chris and I have known each other for probably, I don't know, 8-10 years now, a while.
Yeah, a long time, yeah.
And so Chris, owns a repair shop, or he owns AutoFixSOS, right? Helping clients all across the country. We have a number of mutual clients. One of the big things that I like about Chris is Chris gets in there in the trenches with people, right? He's a boutique solution. The kind of results that he can deliver and the kind of attention that he puts to his clients is unmatched. Chris is obviously from this world. He owned, several shops before this, so he knows this stuff. He's in this industry. He knows kind of pains that shops are going through and is actively out there trying to help people better themselves, better their business, and understand more about their business, so that they can drive this and have a successful business for them and their future. But that's enough about me. That's enough about you. Let's get into it, Chris.
Awesome. Sounds good. Are you? Can you guys see my screen?
You should be. Did you share it yet?
I'm trying to here.
Gotta love technology. It makes our life so much easier.
Right, when it works. Hang on just a second.
There we go. We're in business.
All right, now we go. Okay.
Awesome. I'll leave you to it.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Hunt for allowing me to do this. Anytime we can get in front of people, one of the things I love is helping shop owners. That's why I do what I do. That's my passion. I'm super, super excited to be here. I don't know if you guys have noticed this yet or not, but there's kind of a theme that's been going. It wasn't anything that Hunt had us do or asked us to do, but it's good to see, even though with coaching companies that have a different point of view and do things a little bit differently, that there's a common theme, and you're going to see that reinforced in what I do. I have a different teaching style, so hopefully this works for you guys. I'm not a big fan of Zoom meetings. I'm much better in person. Let me just say that. So I'm going to start off. Hey, must-dos. Guys, I want you to use your point of sale systems to its fullest potential. Most shop owners use about 25% of their point of sale system and never get past that point. They buy a point of sale, they get in there, they do the basics, and that's it. They don't. And you're just robbing yourself of what you should have done by using it to the full potential. So I want to make sure you take some time for yourself and your employees and get them the additional training that they need for them to succeed individually and as a team. I also want to make sure that communication with your employees is always key through technician and productivity. I also throw service advisors in here. You're going to see it's a group effort, right? So we want to make sure that we're moving that ball forward and communicating all the time. Embrace technology. There are so many more tools now that weren't in the industry 8-10 years ago. Embrace it, use it every day. Here's the thing. Here's one of the common things: track, measure, and share. If we don't track it and we don't measure it, then we can't ever fix it, right? So what we need to do is we need to set up ourselves a scorecard for success, track what we want to improve, measure it, and then share it with the employees, okay? So here's my takeaways for everybody today. I want you to take great notes. One of the things that I do when somebody's doing a presentation, rather than taking notes, is I do screenshots. So if you're good at it, I'll try to stay on each slide long enough so you can take a screenshot. We're going to be talking about some formulas and some things in here. You can write it down if you want to, but take the screenshots. That way you've got it. And then, of course, if and when Hunt shares the presentations, you'll have it that way as well. So outside of the screenshots, I want you guys to implement 3 things that I'm going to talk about today. Doesn't really matter what 3 things. If you have 3 things that work together, great. Doesn't do any good if you listen to these presentations and don't do anything. I also want to make sure that you don't get so much stuff that you don't do any of it, right? That's the thing, is sometimes you go to these big rah-rah meetings and you have a notebook full of 100 ideas and you go back and you're just like, I can't do any of that, and don't do anything. So I just want you to find 3 good things out of this, write it down, start with that, and then move on to the next things, right? And so if you do that, you'll be well on your way to improving your shop's efficiency. And actually, you'll probably improve some other processes and procedures in the business as you move forward. So some of the things we're going to do is we're going to set expectations for individual positions in the shop as a group, and we're going to talk about what's holding us back and how to track and measure things. There's a common theme again. Because if we don't track and measure, we can't fix it, right? So efficiency, what is it? The work efficiency formula is pay time divided by actual time, and then you multiply that by 100 to get work efficiency as a percentage. So for example, a water pump job that calls for 3.2 hours and the tech completed it in 2.74 hours, then the tech efficiency on that's 3.2 divided by 2.74 equals, or sorry, times 100 is 117% efficient. So I would say anytime you're over that 100% number, that's awesome. Keep it up. We want to encourage that. And so here's the other thing is, you know, especially with the world the way it is today, you got to be kind of a cheerleader for everybody as they move about their day. Because what we're seeing as a company right now is employees are having a lot of issues, and those issues get dumped on your employee, and your employee has no outlet for that. So sometimes you even have to be the outlet for that and take that burden off their shoulders. So what are the benchmarks for efficiency by position? So let's start with service advisors, right? Because they're part of the team. A lot of times we talk about technician productivity, efficiency, but if the service advisor isn't supporting them correctly, then it's probably not ever going to happen. So kind of what I like to see is a service advisor should be able to handle about 35 to 45 cars per week efficiently. And so what does that include? That includes the care of the customer, answering the phone calls, getting them in, arranging loan cars, everything like that, ordering of parts, dispatching of work, and holding an ARO that coincides with the company targets. We have different formulas to figure out what your ARO should be, but we have to make sure that the service advisor can do all that and handle those things, right? If he can't handle his job, how is he going to be efficient and productive with everybody in the shop? I'm not a big fan of parts people specifically and shop foreman in the business. I want the service advisor dispatching all the work. They're the one that forward faces out to the customer. And I want to make sure that they're the ones that are driving our targets. They're the ones who promise the car to be done at a certain time, everything else. So once we get past the car count target for one service advisor, we needed to decide if we need an assistant or another service advisor. We could get somebody and grow them into a service advisor. If we just need somebody to start out answering the phone, doing appointments, scheduling loaner cars and things like that, then we can do that and then teach them the rest of our processes and procedures moving forward. So what are the benchmarks for efficiency by position? So for an A-Tech, this is a guy or a person, shouldn't say guy, that does most, if not all of your drivability testing, advanced level scope, pressure transducer testing, intermittent failure testing, engine or drivetrain repair, electrical issues. This is also the guy, because we don't have a shop foreman, that's going to be guiding the younger guys in the shop. If we have somebody, we should all have an apprentice technician in the shop that we're trying to grow through our own facility and everything. That way we have good people in the pipeline all the time. So one of the things as well is we have to make sure that we account for him helping other people out, and we have to account for that person time-wise through a pay plan that works for the team. Okay, so our goal for this person is for him to be 80 to 100% efficient. Obviously, more is always better if you can get it. I would say at a minimum 80. So the B technician is your line, guys, right? So this B technician should be goal oriented to 120 to 140% efficient. He's the guy that comes in, knocks it out all day, every day, asks for more. Most of these people are money oriented. So again, for the pay plan. So the B technician, what kind of work is he going to be doing? Obviously producing. So he's going to be doing light testing, because this is also a person that we would like to grow into our diagnostic tech at some day, if that person should retire, or if we grow our car count big enough to where we need another person, something like that. So light testing, evat, misfire, etc., maintenance services, steering, suspension specialist, some lube oil services overflow from GS techs, but not too much, timing belts, water pumps, etc., those types of jobs, alternators, things that he can really, really knock out and keep moving. So then we've got the C tech or the GS tech. This person is oil changes, digital inspections. Actually, that should be on all categories. Everybody should be doing digital inspections, tires, fluid maintenance. Also assist the A and B tech as needed. And this is also the apprentice tech position. This is the future of your business. Look at your C tech and GS tech. If you can't see that person being a B technician and an A technician in your company, you need to fire them right now and hire somebody that you can put through the process and grow that person on forward, right? Goal for this person's 50 to 75% efficient. Again, more is always better. If you can get more, get it. One of the reasons why we lose people is because we hire people in at this position and there's no path forward for them, right? So 2 years later, they're still changing oil, they're still doing tires. You've never let them replace a battery or hang an alternator, or they've never helped with a water pump or anything like that. When you're talking to people and effectively communicating with your people, you need to talk to them. What's your path forward? Where do you want to be a year from now? Where do you want to be 2 years from now? 95% of these people want to grow in the business. Occasionally you'll run across somebody that's like, oh, I just want to change oil the rest of my life. There's nothing wrong with that. There are people out there, I've had them in my business. So what are the benchmarks for efficiency for the shop? So the overall average for the team, the goal should be 110 to 120% efficient overall for your entire staff. So depending on your staffing model, this could be much greater. You have to look and see what works for your shop, right? So if you have one A tech, two B techs, one GS, you should be approaching 100 to 120%, even 140% efficiency. And we're going to talk about efficiency versus productivity here in a minute, but also we should be shooting for 100% productivity as well, right? And again, these are numbers that I'm putting out there. More is always better. So these are targets, these are goals. So how do we track efficiency? Okay, using our technology. So, one of the first things I would tell you is using your tablets through your point of sale system is going to be your preferred method for tracking efficiency and productivity. So if at all possible, use your tablets. Again, we also have to train our people on the technology, make sure they're using it correctly, have them clock into the job on the tablet when they start the job and clock out when they're finished, right? So you can clock into multiple jobs on the same vehicle if you're working on multiple items. The positive to that is it spreads your total time across all the labor lines, right? So if you can actively work on 4 or 5 different things, if you can do 2 fluid services at the same time and replace a water pump, whatever you can do, then obviously that's what we want to do that. And we want to make sure that our technicians are doing that as well. Sometimes they think they are and they're really not, when you have to be, watching them and seeing where they're looked at. So what if book time on an intake gasket is 2.4 hours, but it consistently takes 3.1? So again, if we're tracking efficiency and if we're talking and being efficient with our communication as well, we need to talk to the technicians and everybody else in the shop and have feedback from the technicians that says, hey, I'm pretty good, but I've done this job 8 times, and every 8 times or every individual time I've done that, it's taken me 3.1 hours instead of 2.4. I need the 3.1 hours. Then we should be like, yes, sir, let's go get it. And then do it that way. Again, our estimating systems are just guides, right? Sometimes we take those as they're like written in stone tablets and it has to be this. It doesn't have to be that. You know, set yourself up for success and don't use these excuses for failure. All right. Remember, estimating systems just a guide. So how do we track our efficiency if we don't have a point of sale system that is connected to a tablet or whatever? So, you know, we had our shop before we had all these nice gadgets and gadgets with the tracking and tablets and everything else. So we used a stopwatch and or a time clock. So if you don't have a time clock and don't want to buy one, this is kind of like your last resort option, right? So either on your smartphone, if you got one, and everybody does now these days, just have them use their clock, and then the clock's a stopwatch. You could start your stopwatch, and when you're completed with the job, you stop it, and then you're writing it down. Make sure that the guys are doing it. And this is, again, communicating. My expectation of you, a technician, is that every time without fail, you pull out your smartphone, you turn your clock on, and you clock in and out for each job, and you write it down, and you share the results. If you don't do that, then I'm going to ask you, where's that information? And it's kind of like people doing a digital inspection, right? If you're 100% on digital inspections and expect it, and a guy hands you a car and he's already pulled it out and you haven't done the inspection, then guess what? You hand the keys back to that technician and say, okay, now you need to go do the inspection that you didn't do. You know, do your job like we talked about, please. Okay. So make sure that once you set the standard, you hold them accountable to your standard and your process. So once you do that, you take your actual time on the job versus the time allotted with the formula, and that's efficiency. So again, here we go back to tracking. Make tracking a priority. Hold all parties accountable to the process that you agree to, and make everyone a part of the process, and in turn, make everyone a part of the team and the success, right? That's the end goal. So a lot of time when I'm coaching one-on-one, I've got almost 17,000 hours of individual coaching time with clients at this point. And sometimes we'll have a conversation. I think it's a great phone conversation. We talk later on, and what I said didn't get relayed at all, or the person misinterpreted it. So you have to make sure that when you have verbal communication, follow it up with something that is written down, and try to limit verbal communication. I don't want everybody walking around like robots, but I want people communicating, but also communicating with the written word, typed onto the tablet, everything else. That's another thing. You have to make sure that when you hire technicians and hire service advisors, have to make sure that they can communicate effectively through the written word. I hired a technician one time. I didn't catch it. I don't know why, but he filled out an application, or he came, I remember it like it was yesterday. He came in, asked for application, went outside, came back in 30 minutes later, handed it in, had a resume, was a great interview. We hired him in. He couldn't read or write. He took it out to the car. His wife filled it out. And now I've got a guy that can't read or write. He was really, really good. But communication was terrible. And so at every step of the process, we want to eliminate misunderstanding, and we want to make sure that what is said is what is heard, or better yet, what is read is understood, right? So sometimes when I'm having a coaching call, I'll say to somebody, I'm like, okay, this is what you said, and this is what I heard. Is that really what you said? And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. So have people, if you're going to rely on verbal communication, have them repeat things back to you. And then you do the same thing. A lot of times when we do recorded phone calls, we're listening to a phone call, and the service advisor will answer that call, and the person's talking about body damage and everything like that. And then the service advisor is like, okay, I'll get you a quote for that, blah, 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 blah. 5 minutes into the 5 minutes into the conversation, the person says, okay, well, I want to go ahead and replace that fender. And then the service advisor is like, oh, we don't do body work. Got to make sure that you listen and understand, slow down. So what are some things that robs us of our efficiency, right? Shop layout is a big thing. Poor layout equals poor efficiency. Does each technician have a dedicated workstation set up with a computer and printer? Everybody in the shop, even the GS, should have their own workstation with either a tablet or a computer and a way to get what they need. The fewer steps they take and the more time they spend in their work area, the more productivity and efficiency will go up. Do we have the parts availability and a good process for parts arrival? And do we have the in-stock items that we need to move things along? Does each technician have their own part shelf for receiving parts? So one of the things I mean by that is like every bay should be numbered and every technician should have a part shelf, in my mind, at that bay. So when you're ordering parts and you're on the PO line, you can go in there and put your PO number and go, please deliver to bay 5. That part gets delivered to bay 5. The technician stops, verifies, and makes sure that he has everything he needs, him or her needs, and it goes on the shelf and is ready for them when they need it. The other thing, and then so we also do that with returns. We'll have a section for returns with cores and parts and things like that at their station. That way they don't have to walk back and forth. If we can save those guys 2,000 steps a day, then let's save them 2,000 steps a day. The other thing is I want you to stand back and watch your technicians work. A lot of times as shop owners, we are in the weeds with them. We're in the thick of things. We're right there with them. And because you're in it with them, you don't see the big picture. So you have to pull yourself out to the 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 foot view and really observe and see what's going on. So you can observe and improve. You can do that either in person real time, or you can do it by your camera systems. And the last thing I want you guys to do is to sit in your office and watch your cameras all day, or go on a vacation to Hawaii and be on the phone all the time watching them. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you have a technician that's having issues with productivity and efficiency, you either sit in the shop and watch, or you sit and watch them on camera. What is this guy really doing? It'll tune you into too much phone time, too many breaks. Some of the times these guys will be clocked in on jobs, but they're off talking to everybody else in the shop. I was talking with a client the other day, and he had kind of their maintenance guy that does cleanup and other stuff. He was working on a project and it was like a little bit mechanical. Next thing you know, 3 of the technicians are over there staring over his shoulder, telling him how to do it. Those are things that we need to look out for and kind of cut off at the knees. So one of the other things is a lack of policy and procedure. So you can have as many or as few policies and procedures that you want, but there probably is a minimum number of policies and procedures that you have. Each shop's differently. So before I talk about this just a little bit and show you an example, whenever you hire somebody in, that person should get an employee handbook that they read and they look at. They should also either get a separate training manual and or a separate policy and procedure manual, or if you want it, you can have both of them together. That way, if we're bringing in a GS tech or a C technician, they can look in there, they can see, okay, this is what I'm doing week 1, and then have their mentor, because yes, we need to assign a mentor to everybody in the shop when they come in new. We're going to check that training plan off, and we're going to have them look at the policies and procedures. That way, there's no question in anybody's mind what they should have done in that circumstance, right? That's why we do that. We do it to create cohesiveness. We do it to create, in some circumstances, comradeship and a sense of team. So one of the ones I like and that I like to share, because this is a good example, right? So lack of policy and procedure test drive route. So we need to have a short route, an intermediate route, and a long route. So each route's to be driven with all employees, and employees are to know and understand which route is used for what repair, et cetera. So we're going to have it written, we're going to talk about it, and the mentor's going to take this person on the route and say, hey, if you do this, you're going to do this route. If you do this, you're going to do this route. So the short is an initial test drive, intermediate would be a final test drive on most repairs, and the long one would be a final test drive or testing drive to get all the diagnostic monitors set, any computer systems, tire lights, anything else like that, right? Any major drivetrain component replacement. Not too long ago, I had a client that, if I get this correct, I think they did a repair and somehow got power steering fluid in the transmission. Customer picked it up, drove it, didn't make it 5 miles, and catastrophic, right? So had a bad experience. If we would have done that, we would have found that out and could have headed that off. It's a terrible situation all around, but if we would have followed our policies and procedures, then we should have been able to get that, to mitigate that issue, right? So can you train your support staff this job? Absolutely, right? So any, like the people that Aaron are talking about, you have the technician do the first drive, and then if you have somebody do the QC or the follow-up, it can be an actual QC person. It can be the service advisor who's actually taking that customer from the beginning or cradle to grave, what we're talking about, and done that, have them finish it. Also, if you're doing your cleaning process, you need to make sure that that car comes in, it gets cleaned, everything's good to go. This is one of the reasons why I love a labor matrix, right? Is because this pays for all the little things that we do that we typically don't add on to a ticket. So I like the 0.2. So for every hour, we're going to add 0.2 hours to that. So if it's a 1 hour job, it's going to come through the point of sale system as 1.2. This pays for all the things that we do that aren't included in the actual repair. And I'm the one that actually sent that thing into Hunt. I want to share this with my technicians, and I've had like a 360 degree or 180 degree reversal on this. In the beginning, when I had my shops, this was extra for the shop to offset maybe some of the inefficiencies in billing and things like that. But I'm going to use that now to hire in technicians and keep technicians. So if you have a guy that can bill out 40 hours in a week, and we're given 1.2, or we're collecting 1.2 hours, that's an extra 8 hours for that guy. If you do the math, 40 times 1.2 is 48. So if you can tell that guy, if you just bill me 40 hours on your end of it, we're going to get you an extra 8 hours of time to clean your bay, do test drives, and things like that. So hopefully this works good. I've done it several different ways. So this is the test drive route image, right? So whenever you have this, these are things you can do in Google Maps, other different ways to do that. So you can have your test drive route just like this and have it printed out in the manual. You can also save it digitally for people if they want to go to it right here. So you've got this in your book. You've got, this is the short route. This is the larger route down here. And for, if you look in the notes, this is the desired test drive route for major repairs, including but not limited to timing belts, cooling system work, and engine work. Engine or transmission work requires driving the loop 2 or 3 times. So we're saying that in here. We're taking out any and all question and any and all doubt, right? So here's some of the other rules we have on here. When test driving a customer's car away from the shop, the following rules must be followed. Always wear a seatbelt. No talking on the phone or driving at the same, or no talking on the phone and driving at the same time. Follow all the rules of the road. Do not change the customer's radio stations or go through their things unless this applies to the repairs that were done for the car. Yes, I've had my rear end chewed out several times for the radio stations not being correct when the customer gets the car back. No passengers unless they're currently employed by us and there's a valid reason for them to be on the test drive. The valid reason would be the mentor showing somebody the test drive route. Had a couple of instances. I can think of one where a customer had a complaint of air conditioning noise, and one of my technicians drove around for 10 miles with me at the very, very back of the van listening for this noise that turned out to be on a TSB. But anyway, no going to run personal errands. I've got that phone call too. From a lady, why am I sitting next to my car at Sonic with one of your technicians in there? That's not a phone call you want to get. And of course, no eating or drinking in the customer's car. So continuing on this, what robs us of our efficiency, the work environment. Is your shop dirty? And this goes to kind of what Aaron was talking about earlier. A dirty shop equals poor efficiency and increases probability of an accident. So that's one of the other things we don't want to do, is we don't want to have a slip and fall, something like that, have to go through workers' comp, have an issue or an injury. Make sure you clean your work area after every job and at the end of every day. That's where that extra 0.2 comes in, guys. That way we don't have to fight people over getting things clean. They should have plenty of time built into there. Deep clean the entire shop every month or every 6 months. I love it when the shop's busy, but if you're riding that thing hard for a long time, and at some point it's either good to come in on a weekend and just do a deep clean, or pay somebody else to do it, or just kind of stop and do it. Take a look around, look at your cameras. This is one of the things that you can do by looking at your cameras. Watch how people walk around your shop. What areas need to be clear? Do we need to come up with a completely different path? Do we need to move a toolbox or a bench somewhere so that somebody can save themselves their steps? Pressure wash walls, jacks, lifts, machines, everything like that. So culture, you know, a lot of times we have these issues where we have internal strife and people are just mad at each other and can't get along. We have to be asking our employees at least weekly, hey, and this is not out in front of everybody else. You got to pull them aside and be like, hey, how are things at home? What's going on? What can I do to make your life better at this point? How can I have a positive impact on your life? I was on the phone call with a client yesterday, and the owner had a blow up with the shop foreman, and they were like at each other. Cups were thrown, which had never happened before, but it happened now. And the more the owner talked to the employee and asked about what's wrong with your, you have this attitude, what's going on? Tell me. And he had to ask this person like 12 times, what's going on? And finally, the person just kind of broke down a little bit and cried and was like, hey, I'm on a medication for back pain. They keep messing up my medication and I'm just out of my mind. These are things that we need to know about employees, right, guys? Okay. Is your culture broken? No motivation, walking on eggshells, cancerous employee. I had a technician one day, came up to me, was the best technician, hands down, I ever had. He's like, I'm quitting. And I'm like, hang on, come here, let's go talk about it. I go, what's going on? And he's like, I go, are you leaving? You going to another job? He's like, no. He goes, I hate Mike. I can't take Mike anymore. And if I stay, we're going to get in a fight. And so I asked him, I go, what's going on with Mike? And he goes, every time he cleans his bay, he takes his trash and sweeps it into mine and just leaves it there. And apparently had been doing it for months and months and months. I never caught it, never noticed it. Nobody ever said anything about it. But I almost lost the best technician I ever had because of another employee's bad attitude and looking down on other people. And feeding into culture, bad pay plan that doesn't set the team up for success, right? So we have to have a pay plan where everybody's taken care of. If it's going back to what he said earlier, it has to be a win for the customer, a win for the employee, and a win for the shop, right? And then one of the other things is not having the proper tools to perform the task at hand. In case you have special tools, welder, torch, proper testing equipment, it could be anything like that. So productivity, what is it and how is it different from efficiency? So productivity is measured by how many hours you produced versus how many hours you were actually present. Okay. So if you worked 40 hours and were able to bill 60 hours, how productive were you? You were 150% productive. And I think that's awesome. So the math on that is 60 divided by 40 times 100 is 150%. So can you be 150% efficient, but only 75% productive? The answer is actually yes. And so how does that happen? So it can be lag time between jobs, waiting on tickets, waiting for parts, cleaning up their bays, et cetera, et cetera. So if a technician performs 30 hours worth of work in only 20 hours, he's 150% efficient. But if that technician's always waiting for tickets to get delivered, right parts, the tech has a ton of time in between, so he or she could only be able to achieve 75% productivity. So let's do a little bit of math on that. So if you have a tech that's at work for 40 hours and he's actually there for 40 and he has 30 pay hours, then the 30 pay hours divided by 30 actual hours is 100% efficient. But if he has 30 pay hours and he worked 40 hours, then he's only 75% productive. So if you're sitting out there and can take a screenshot of that, boom, hammer that out real quick. So does your current pay plan reward the tech for being efficient, or does it penalize you for their inability to be productive? So a lot of times when we do a pay plan that's salary, and Hunt can correct me here in a minute, as far as I know, it's not legal in any state in the United States to actually pay your technician salary. Those people have to be clocked in, and you have to be accounting for their time in one way or another. Also to protect yourself. Now you can do flat rate and other stuff. You can pay them hourly, but you can't pay them a salary. Okay. So where do we start? So one of the things is we have to mitigate the workflow chaos, right? So we have to, again, have the systems and processes in place so the ship's always sailing in the right direction. So there needs to be a captain or captain steering the ship. There needs to be a person in charge of workflow. And so this workflow is prioritized based on customers' expectations and promise times, and who handles that. That's the person who checked them in, arranged their needs, pick up, drop off, everything else. So if the person in charge of the workflow doesn't have a part in setting the customer's expectations, this can lead to chaos and indifference. The service advisor owns the relationship with the customer and has the most to lose, because guess what? He's the one who gets yelled at if for some reason we don't get things done on time and deliver when we're supposed to. One of the things that I did, I had a bad couple of weeks at the counter when I first bought my shop, and I was getting ripped every day by a customer for this, for that, for the other. And I started pulling in the technicians. I went out and I was like, hey, I want you to come up here. I want you to stand right next to me. Don't say a word. I don't care if you're mad, upset, whatever, but I want you to listen to this tongue lashing that I'm getting ready to take because of this, and it's an issue that we had or an issue that you had. And once I did that with each technician about 2 times, they're like, holy crap, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was that bad, or I didn't realize you had to deal with those types of things. Because technicians think we just sit up in the air conditioner and do nothing all day, right? We're just hanging out on Facebook. So again, how do we make this better? We use a time clock and perform a work study on productivity. So every time a technician's not clocked into a job, they need to be clocked into shop time, and they write down next to each time what they're doing. This is not to prove that the technicians are goofing around. It's to help everyone, to help with staffing needs. What positions do we need to create? What positions do we need to get rid of? So if you have 3 techs that are spending 20 hours a week total cleaning their bays, and we're still not able to be productive and efficient, couldn't we hire a cleanup person to assist in that job? So continuing that theme, how do we make it better? We want our processes and procedures in place, standard operating procedures for techs and service advisors to follow. Everybody should know their job function. There should be no doubt. If somebody asks you a question, well, I thought it was done this way, and that's not the way I did it, then the first thing you'd be like, hey, first thing you do is say, hey, thank you for taking care of that. I'm really glad you did. But what I want you to do is let's write a procedure for that now so that everybody in the shop knows how that should have been handled. Okay. Is your inspection efficient? Don't check the transmission fluid, then the brake lights, and then back under the hood. Dispatching. Do the technicians know what's next? They should never have to wait on someone to tell them what to do when they're finished. They should have 3 vehicles in their queue at all times. Move from one job to the next quickly. Inspecting the inspector exercise. So this is where we get into a way that we're talking about for our technicians to make sure they do the same thing every time. You may have one technician that does a bang up job. He gets you 15 pictures. He does it in 10 minutes and has the best averages. And you may have another guy that is just at the complete opposite end, right? So what we want to do at that complete opposite end is we want to get those guys together. We want to pull that car into the shop, have everybody do an inspection on the same vehicle and say, hey, what did you find? What pictures did you take? How did you do that? And have that meeting and carry it forward. One of the other things is we want to have a live daily schedule and have it in the shop for all the technicians to see. We don't want to allow technicians to go over on their allotted time. If they're not going to finish something in time, we need to know about it. Hopefully we're proactive with the service advisors and everything, and we're out there living it, breathing it. If you don't have a live daily schedule, if you don't have a live daily schedule, then in the morning meeting, it's amazing to me how a technician, if he has a car and he doesn't have another car in the queue, he'll take 8 hours to do a 3-hour job. But if he knows he has another job in the queue and another one, then he'll pop that thing out, because technicians don't want to be sweeping or doing anything else. If they can hide underneath the hood of a car, they will. Okay. So let's take that out of there. Let's let them know where they're going, where we're headed. So plan days in advance. If customers don't show for their appointment within 30 minutes, call them. How many of you people out there, when a customer doesn't show, you don't do anything? There's no follow-up. Make sure we follow up. Hey, did this time not work for you? Did you get in a wreck? Do I need to come get you now? So, I already talked about it. If you can't have a live schedule and have a technician meeting any morning, talk about it. I'm almost done, I promise. I'm sorry, I'm watching the clock. Here we go. Improve workflow, improve time management. That's both service advisors and technicians. Again, step back, observe what they're doing, give them information to help them improve that. Reduce waiting on approval times. So, back in the day, we had flip phones and it took us an hour to build an estimate because we taken pictures with flip phones, attaching it to emails and sending them out. Now you have texting, digital inspections, emails. It's great to have all that, but we also have to ask the customer, make sure that we know what their preferred way of communication is and how they want us to follow up with them. Almost done, guys. Communicate, communicate, communicate. If you're not communicating, you're dead in the water, right? We'll also have to find out what motivates our people. Do you have a tiered pay plan based on production? Do you have a time off pay plan? 4-day work weeks for your technicians? Find out what motivates them, what makes them more productive and more efficient, and then off we go. So stop killing your momentum. Oftentimes we have clients that are multitasking. As coaches, we have clients that are multitasking to save money, or they're trying to grow and they don't want to pay that extra employee. The owner may think they can't afford to pay that extra person in the shop or in the office, but this creates bottlenecks in the workflow process. While that shop owner is multitasking, working in the front and the back, building estimates, doing brake jobs, the other technicians are waiting for work orders because they don't know what's next. The reception is standing idle because she doesn't know how, or they don't know how to build an estimate. Other times in a larger shop, the shop foreman may dispatch work without knowledge of promise times, and this all can create customer frustration as a result. Again, one of the most important things I picked up today was actually said by Hunt: reduce friction with the customer all the time. So here's a quick story, and normally I would tell a story without notes, but I read this earlier this week when I was working on the presentation, and I thought, oh man, I have to share that. So here it is. A small brewery launched a fancy microbrew, and it proved to be very popular, so popular in fact that they were having trouble getting it distributed to all the stores and bars in the area. The management team met to discuss the problem. Here's the schedule, said the manager in charge of distribution. You can see what we have, see that we have our biggest shipments on Monday and Tuesday, and then smaller ones Wednesday and Thursday, and all the local deliveries on Friday. So the CEO says, hey, we'll have to change that. What's a better way to schedule it? And so the team couldn't find any logical explanation for that schedule, which had been around for a long time. So finally, they reached out to a former distribution manager whose grandfather had founded the company. And he thought about it and he said, yeah, I remember that. When we first started out, all our deliveries were made by horse-drawn wagons. On Mondays and Tuesdays, when the teams were rested, they could pull a big load. But on Wednesdays, they started to get tired. And by Friday, they could only make it a few blocks. So that's the way we set the schedule. So this is it, guys. Don't get bogged down in the past. Look to the future. I want to challenge all of you to commit to remembering why you do what you do, and don't let your methods or your previous methods get in the way of your mission. So especially here at the end of 2020, as we complete this crazy year, don't be afraid to keep changing where necessary, and don't let what you've done in the past limit your future. I know nobody wants to go back 30 years and see my high school yearbook, but if you did, what my words of wisdom were then is exact same as now. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. Questions? Here's my contact information. I'm always out here to help you guys.
I love it.
Whew.
Ton of stuff there, huh?
Well, I know, and no matter how many times I practiced it, it still never took that long. So I apologize for going over.
No, it's all good. It's perfect. It's a ton of information out there. It's always tricky too when you're doing it on Zoom, right? Because both of us are kind of used to teaching this stuff live. You kind of get interaction, and it's hard to do a Zoom, but I really appreciate you doing this. I mean, this is a ton of information that, it's how many times can we say this stuff, but it's like the basics. It's stuff that every shop deals with, and shops that everyone can improve on, right? You can't there's no one that says, hey, we're too productive, right? It's something that you're constantly working towards and you're constantly trying to get better at. Cool. Yeah, I mean, some of the big things I pulled out from you that I wanted to touch on, and we got a couple of questions here, is first and foremost, when you started off, maximize your point of sale software, right? I mean, how many times do you see a shop owner that's on, AllDat or something like that, and they're like, I need to change. I'm like, why? Right? We're not even using this to the full potential right now. You're trying to go to the shiny object. I mean, there's a ton of really good options out there. I'm not blasting all data by any means, but right. There's a ton of options out there, but make sure that we're leveraging the technology that we have now, right? Because everyone thinks, well, if I go to this new latest, greatest one, it's going to make me more money, which is true if you're going to utilize the different features. If you're not utilizing what you have now, there's no reason to. Another thing that I love is communicate, right? So many times I talk with shop owners and they have this idea in their head, right? They have a sales target in their head. They have a productivity target in their head. They have an idea of who they don't like and who they think is underperforming and who they think is doing a really good job. And I say this all the time of, how do you expect them to live up to your expectations if they don't know what your expectations are, right?
Exactly.
They'll be saying, oh, he's not doing enough work. Have you ever talked to him and said, hey, Ronnie, you're doing 25 hours, right? You're my B technician. You're my hours driver. I need you getting 40, right? And so, they're doing only as good a job as they need to, right? Let's put ourselves in their shoes. They're going to do what's best for them, what's best for, long-term and short-term as it relates to money and their quality of life. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is, kind of relates back to your salary question, right? Salary, you should not be paying a technician salary. Anyone out there listening to this, if you're paying a technician or really anyone in your business salary, be very, very, very careful with that, right? Because a lot of people have this impression that salary requirements and overtime requirements are only having to do with that income threshold. When Obama's in office, I believe the income threshold is $46,000. The reason I don't know what that number is because that's just one piece of the puzzle. They have to make a certain amount of money to be exempt from overtime, but then they also have to have management level responsibilities. Can they hire and fire at will? Almost no one in a shop can answer that question, right? Almost no one in the shop has someone that has all that responsibilities. It's also something where I talk about, just like sales tax. If you think that you might need to pay someone overtime, if you think that you might need to charge someone sales tax, do it. I have seen at least one business specifically get run out of business because of an overtime lawsuit. Okay, don't mess with it. It's not worth it. It's not the right thing to do either. But going back onto that, how would you recommend someone motivating, either a team member that's paid hourly or a team member that's paid salary, whether, that's really the right thing to do? How do you motivate them to be more productive when they have no incentive to do so?
Well, you have to figure out what motivates them, right? So some people are money motivated, some people are time off motivated, some people are just never motivated, right? So you have to get those people and put them on the right in the right part of the bus or whatever. One of the things that there at the bottom of one of those slides I talked about, maybe it's a flat rate program for the team where this diagnostic tech is getting $35, $40 an hour, plus he gets another $3 per hour for everything the team produces. Maybe you have a B tech that can come in and knock out 80 hours worth of work and work 50 or 60. And he also wants to have off on the weekend. So if he wants to come in and work 10, 12 hours Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday and take off the rest of the week, then why wouldn't we let him do that if that's what it takes? And then somebody else, sometimes we have all these, as shop owners, these neat toys and things that end up on the books, whether they're supposed to be or not. But, maybe a guy loves to go snowmobiling and he lives in Colorado, but he can't afford a snowmobile. So the shop owner lets him borrow his or whatever on the weekend. But tie it to productivity. Be like, hey, you know what? You bill out 40 hours this week and only work 40, then you can take the snowmobile this weekend. I've had similar situations, and usually if one of those persons, say the guy wanted to go snowmobiling and wanted to leave on Thursday and he didn't make his hours. Well, unfortunately, you got to be the bad guy and be like, okay, I'm holding you accountable. You didn't reach the hours, so sorry, you can't go snowmobiling. Guess what? You do that one time, that guy's snowmobiling every other weekend now, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because he knew you're going to hold him accountable for it.
Yeah, it's also you communicate with them. It's, oh, I'm not the jerk. Like, hey, we both
Right.
signed up for that. But, I think your big answer was just going back to what you said before, communicate, right? Don't tell them what they want. Go and talk to them and say, what do you want? What makes you turn? And some guys might tell you flat out, hey, Chris, hey, boss, I need more money. All right, cool. You make me more money. You're going to make more money. Everyone wins in that equation. But, like Shelby was referencing before, the new generation that we're seeing a lot, they're not super money motivated, right? And so we got to figure out what makes them tick. I think the way a lot of people fall back on the money side is money's easy, right? Hey, I got money. I deal with money. If I want to have someone do more work, I'll pay them. That's easy. Finding the non-monetary stuff is uncomfortable for people because you have to get to know someone, right? You have to get to know your team and figure out what makes them click. And this has to be something for something, at the end of the day, whether it's money, time off, snowmobiling, people work on incentives, right?
Right.
And people have different incentives. A lot of people, I have some people that have shops that run really, really, really productive shops, and they're all hourly because the people that are in there, they've built a culture where they're saying, hey, you know what? When I show up at work, I'm going to do the best job. I'm going to do as much as I can because I like that feeling of satisfaction. I like that coming from the boss saying, hey, this is an incredible job. And that just works for them. Now I have some other people where I'm saying, you know what? It's not going to work with your shop, right? You're at 20 hours on an average technician for, build hours. And they're just not the type of people that are going to do anything more than what they need to. But a lot of times, we go back and we say, hey, what are you expecting out of them? Do your employees know what you're expecting of them and stuff like that? So,
Well, one of the things as coaches is we used to stick to kind of pretty much the same basic pay plan. But one thing I've noticed in the last several years is, I could show you probably 15 different pay plans right now because some people are working on culture, some people are working on this. I've got a client and did a pay plan for a shop. Everybody's paid minimum wage, including the owner, and they have a gross profit goal. And then if they hit that gross profit goal, everybody gets a percentage of the profits. And they've all agreed to work that way. Everybody knows what everybody else makes, and they're in it to win it, man. So you could seriously have 100 different shops with 100 different pay plans.
Yeah, and you got buy-in, but like you said, there's no one size fits all options. You know, everyone's a little bit
Absolutely.
differently, and I do love. I mean, what we're seeing now is we're seeing more of a push towards, you know, team-based bonus structures, because the conventional flat rate model, you know, rewards inefficiency. It rewards hoarding work. Hey, I got this easy brake job that my C technician could knock out, but I want my hours, right? Versus if we get into an idea of, hey, we're looking to build this shop up as a whole, and we're going to work as a team. A lot of times, if you have the right culture, they'll delegate amongst themselves.
Right.
But we had a good question on here from Andrew. All right. How many times should we let our A-techs drive a drivability? I think, Andrew, I think you wrote that trying to get me to screw up that. Type complaint that isn't acting up. I feel like we waste a lot of time and cost of production tech's time. So he's asking about how often should we let our A-technicians go out there and diagnose this stuff?
Is it a customer complaint that we can't find, or not a customer complaint?
Yeah, it looks like it's a drivability type issue that isn't acting up, meaning I'm guessing it's hard to replicate, and they're trying to get their most senior guy out there to get it to do this problem. I mean, do you like the idea of having the A-tech out there? Are we protecting the A-tech because he's our most, you know, senior person?
Well, first of all, I think we need to set the expectation on the phone. If the customer calls in and they're like, hey, this only happens like once every 6 months when it's raining and the full moon's halfway out, then we need to set the expectation with them that this is a severe, and this is why I like diagnostic testing levels and not hours and everything else. So to me, that's something like diagnostic test level 5, where you're going to have it for probably a week, if not 2 weeks, and the technician's probably going to have to spend 3-4 hours driving in that car. But our levels have to be set up so that we can figure that out. It pays for everybody, and we move on. I have a shop in Houston that they do, like, everybody in the area brings them all their problem children, and so their testing level 5 is almost $900. But that's for heavy drivability issues that may take a week, 2 weeks to figure out.
And so you don't mind in that situation having the A-tech on there, you know, as long as we're getting paid for it.
Right. Yeah. As long as we're getting paid for it, as long as we're, you know, none of us have talked about effective labor rates today, but as long as we're not going upside down on our time. And then at some point too, you have to be like, you know, at some point, do you pay the technician for it and maybe not charge the customer because you spent 2 weeks and never found it? You got to deal with that with your customer. I would 100% of the time say, no, don't ever give it back. But I'm not in that situation. Every situation is different.
So one of those things is really, we're looking at it from the opposite perspective. Instead of worrying about who's doing that test, obviously we want our cheapest person that can get the results done. But if I have an A technician there, it's a little bit more skilled at some of this diagnostics and drivability, maybe he can get that done in 2 hours versus my B or C technician takes 5 hours to replicate it. Right. As long as we're getting paid for it up front and we're communicating that to the customer, then I don't see any issue with it. Cool. Awesome. So Chris, thank you again. I'm going to see if we can get Jerry and Chubby back on here.
Okay.
Aaron is going to join us. Let's see. And then kind of just go a recap on what we talked about here. So Jerry should be back on here. Let's see if this is Chris. Jerry, you with us?
I'm here.
Awesome. I can hear you. Chubby, you there? Chubby, there's 2 of you on there, so I'm hoping I promoted the right one. Yeah, we're good to go.
How's that?
That is perfect. Let's see if Aaron, if Aaron, if you end up joining us and you hear this, let me know and I'll promote you over there. First and foremost, guys, I just wanted to say thank you all for joining us today. I think this has been an incredible resource. I personally have learned a ton from you guys. I want to thank you guys for spending time out of your day to do this. And obviously everyone that joined us today, this has been incredible. I think one of the biggest shining moments out of all this COVID stuff is that there's a ton of information out there for people to learn, right? You know, we don't have to travel anymore. I mean, this information is available on demand and a lot of this is free. And I think one of the biggest things that you guys have all touched on is all of this stuff is not something where we got to change the business, right? We are changing the business and we're changing the procedures, but we're changing you as a business owner, right? You need to make some personal changes and you need to put some work into this, and then you're going to start to see the dividends from it. But I think it's been awesome. And I think that this is going to be probably information overload for a lot of people. So luckily they can go back and watch this again. But yeah, I mean, we've already went a ton on here. I'm not sure if you guys had anything that you wanted to cover with, but the kind of thing that I want to start off and kind of hear your thoughts on this is, if I'm a shop right now, we got this uncertainty with the election. Chubby did an awesome job of kind of, showing some of these numbers and showing that we think that we might have a slow 3, 4, 5 months from here before, we start seeing some positive improvements, whether that's wintertime, whether that's COVID related, a lot of stuff. If you're talking to a shop owner right now, what are you saying to do or get ready or prepare for the next 5, 6 months? Chris, we'll start with you. Oh, I got 2 Chris's. We'll go Chris Cotton there first.
Oh, can you repeat that one more time? Somebody sent a message for a question and I was like trying to answer it real quick, but
So I'm saying if you're talking to a shop owner right now and we're concerned about stuff slowing down here for the next couple months, what are you telling to that shop owner? What should I be doing? What is your biggest piece of advice?
Well, and Chubby said it earlier, if everybody missed it, and I'm glad he said it because I'm saying it now. You have to go back to basics. You have to go from where you started from. If the shop owner has to be at the counter, with the troops in it, knee deep every day for the next 5 months, then that's what you got to do. I think one thing I want to say is, I think as an industry that we did a great job helping each other out. I know, for me, myself, through WorldPack and other places like that, and Chubby and ATI, April, May, June, we were doing webinars like every day, talking to clients, keeping people off the ledge, everything else. And if you look at the restaurant industry, they didn't have that support from coaches or anybody, and didn't support themselves that way. So having said that, again, back to basics. One of the first things that we first started talking about April, May, June was calling all the customers, making sure that you're open, and give them a level of service that they've never had before, right? And then Chubby again earlier said, hey, if you do it once, you got to continue it. So that's the same thing. What I'm seeing now is our service advisors and staffs are exhausted because we've been so busy and we've done so well. And so some of our customer service stuff has started to slip when I'm listening to phone calls and things like that. So we got to get those people, we got to get the staff re-energized, ready for the end of the year and the beginning of next year. And again, it's just back to basics into 2021.
Cool. Shelby, what would you tell a shop right now? After Chris stole your idea there.
I did, didn't I? We can ask Jerry, but Chris is right. The basics are really the key when things start going to hell in a handbasket. But I'd really, since I think the long-term problem is more of a threat to us than the short-term problem of COVID, is staffing the shop. So I think it's important that you don't lose anybody through this, because as Chris said, people are getting wore out right now. They're tired of wearing masks. They're tired of staying home. They're sick and tired of everything. And, if somebody comes along with a better opportunity, they may jump ship, even though it may be a bad decision for them. So I think concentrating on our people and helping them grow and figuring out what it'll take to help them engage is really going to be something that will keep owners busy during all this and keep us focused on coming out of this versus, continuing the misery.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's something that we've seen, I know, especially down here in this area, that a lot of dealerships are struggling with. When some of this stuff slowed down, they panicked and they fired off a ton of their technicians. And then when business picked back up, they went to call their technicians and they were like, oh yeah, I got a job somewhere else, right?
Right.
Jerry hired me off the street. And so I love that idea. I mean, if you don't have a team, you don't have a business. And especially if you're in a smaller shop where you have 1 or 2 or 3 technicians, you lose a technician, you could have a complete lost year trying to staff that. So exactly right. Cool. Jerry, what are you thinking? What are you telling your shops right now that you're working with?
Well, you said there are two Chris's on the call. I think there's two Chubbies on the call. I'll take one of them. Good to see you. Good to see you guys, and I'm glad to be back. What come to my mind right away, and it may be something I was reading the other day. Make sure you got enough runway. So the number one reason why planes crash is they run out of runway. And what the heck does that have to do with business? Make sure you got enough runway, and runway in our business is cash. So now's not the time to be spending frivolously, I don't believe. I think most experts recommend that you've got enough, cash, I guess, to be able to stay in business 90 days. Look at those expenses and make sure you got enough runway left. In every business, I heard the governor in Ohio talk a little bit yesterday, give us all his gloom and doom. But one of the things that he said that I thought was incredible, with every tragedy, danger, all of that, there is always opportunity. All you can do is control the controllables. None of us can. I don't have the ability to make a vaccine, or do anything that's going to really impact the COVID. But all I can do is control kind of what both Chubby and Chris had said. Control the controllables. What can I do within my four walls to make sure I'm in business tomorrow, the next month, and so on? And a lot of that is just practicing the basics. And I guess the other thing I would say, don't watch the news.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Get off the news, get off of Facebook. Yeah. Tend to the part of the garden that you can reach, and everything else is out of your control.
Yeah.
Cool. Love it. Yeah. I mean, Tammy had a good thing here. Do some team building, right? Morale is at an all-time low, not only in the country as a whole, right? But also a lot of times in their shop, right? So make sure that we're staying there, staying together, really propping people up and giving a positive attitude. One question that came in here that I want to hear your guys' thoughts on is Justin here is asking, he has a B Tech that is not money motivated. He's a workplace environment motivated. As a result, he's great for morale, but bad for efficiency. What would you guys do with a technician like that? Someone can grab that. I'm not going to assign that. Someone that has a good idea on that. How do we motivate someone that's not money motivated and they're just a positive energy type person?
What does motivate them?
Yeah, exactly. It says workplace environment motivates. So he likes a positive attitude. How do you motivate someone that has strong feelings like that, Chubby?
I guess you'd have to work on creating a positive attitude around the shop. That would be number one. But odds are there's probably something just more than that. Mm-hmm. I would dig a little bit deeper because trying to keep the shop always positive and always bubbly and always happy in order to keep one guy productive, that's not an easy thing in this business because there's days. But I would try to make everybody, I would try to, share it with everybody and keep everybody happy. But at the same time, figure out what else is, there's probably about 4 or 5 other things that are driving that. Could be recognition dependency. It could be a million things, but determine what else is driving that ship to get him like that.
Cool. I like it.
Maybe you make him in charge of employee morale. Maybe he's the guy that sits down with everybody and checks in and takes their temperature, so to speak, and go from there. I mean, it could be several different things.
Cool.
I don't know. It's our job to motivate employees. I don't think we can do that. You could provide some of the tools, but, a lot of technicians and, our employees, staff in general, look what's going on at home. The family life, maybe is going to hell. There's so many things that are, totally out of our control. One of the things I think about often is, what's the most important thing that I could give my people? What's the most important thing?
Paycheck.
That's what they think. Yeah. But really what it is my truth. We've got an open door policy. I often sit down with employees and I just tell them what's going on. Hey, I noticed there's something bothering you, or I notice I just can't seem to motivate you. Help me out. What can we do? And I think just sometimes just sharing, your little piece of yourself goes a long way. They're not just a number. They're really your most valuable asset.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that too is if they like a positive energy, obviously the biggest energy comes from you as the shop owner, right? And so if you just communicate, hey, this is what I'm expecting out of you. Maybe you don't want more money. I'd love to give you more money if that's what makes you tick. But what's going to make me happy and what's going to have the best morale is if we're productive and we're cranking out work so that we can make our customers happy. That's a tricky one. I see Tara just recommended a cool book here, a good book called What Motivates Me, that's helped our team tenfold to figure out what actually makes people tick. And then another one, Dream Manager. So Justin, check those out. I think those should be cool.
The Dream Manager is a book I got in my CEO group, and bigger companies actually have that as a role. And what Chris said with
well, like
that
an actual
guy,
position?
it says, oh yeah, big time position. And the bigger companies have found tremendous traction with it, where they would literally teach somebody how to buy their first home, and they would help them get things that they never had in life. And they were usually older. They had a lot of experience. They'd been there, done that. So Chris's idea was actually not bad. Empower somebody to be the dream manager. It's a good idea, but I definitely think you can motivate people without question. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be here on your with you guys today.
Exactly.
Chubby, I wanted to mention something you said about the dream manager. And when you said that, it just kind of clicked with me. I know often, usually around, the first of the year, everybody starts making those New Year's resolutions, and most of them are a wish. But often we do a team meeting that time of year, and we give people vision boards. So again, hey, what do you want? I ask them to cut some stuff out of magazines, paper, print it off the internet, whatever. Come back, and we start doing an exercise. First, we pass out the boards, and then you'd be surprised what they come back with. Maybe it's, get closer to God, buy a first, get rid of debt, quit smoking, quit hitting the booze, whatever it is. But it's awesome when they share that with you, and somebody maybe is able to buy their first vehicle or their first home or whatever that might be, and you can play a part of helping them achieve those dreams. So great.
Cool.
Where you got that idea from, Jerry? Remember the old goal poster?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that guy that wrote the book Chicken Soup,
Yep.
He created an electronic goal poster for the millennials that are online today. And instead of cutting and pasting, I actually went through an exercise of doing it electronically. It wasn't as much fun as cutting and stuff out, but it sure was. It's just as effective.
Awesome. Good question here from Katie. Any suggestions on motivating techs and advisor to participate in continuing education? How do you guys talk to shop owners about making sure that, not only them, but their team is buying in and taking these courses and learning more about this? Do you pay them? Do you make them do it? How do you get them excited about that?
I have some feedback on that, but go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, absolutely pay them. And I mean, you can't make anybody do anything. Was just the quick answer I was going to have. Go ahead, Jerry.
No, I was going to say, a couple of things. When I think about my technicians, most of them want to learn. Cars, I talk to them all the time about cars are going to pass you by. The technology is going to pass you by, and you're going to be working at the guy down the shop down the street that only does mufflers and oil changes. Good luck on trying to provide for your family with that. I find most techs have a desire to learn. So we provide them with the training. Even a lot of it's hands-on, even though today my techs are going through a training class right now, a hands-on one in our area, and a lot of good feedback. Of course, I have them, we sign a little agreement because I'm investing quite a bit of money in that if they leave in 12 months, we'll prorate what they owe me back. That's just wise to do. I'm investing in you on a chance because I believe in you. And the way we pay them is we came up with a training wage, whatever that might be, $15-20 an hour. And I got this idea from a dear friend of mine, Bill, fellow shop owner in Medina, Ohio. But what he said he did, and I implement the same thing, is we give them a training wage, and then for every hour of training that they attend, and we track it, it turns out to be a Christmas bonus at the end of the year. So it's a great way to motivate some of them. With service advisors, I got to kind of get inside their head a little bit, and we watch a lot of that together and don't overwhelm them. We try to just work on one principle. One of the things I worked on, several months ago, I shared a little bit in my talk earlier today, but getting the customers to view the inspection with you. So we started listening to calls together, and I just wanted to try to get them to do that one thing. And then once we got that done, let's move on to the next thing. But trying to get your service advisors to, watch 8 hours of video online without you policing it to make sure it's absorbing it, they're absorbing it, is really a tough road to hoe.
Exactly right.
One thing I would say is you also have to have them, you have to allow them the time to train, right? You can't be like, hey, Tex, at Friday at noon, we're going to stop and everybody's going to do a training seminar. And then at 11:47, you go in and be like, oh, too busy. Nobody gets to train today. You can't jerk rugs out from underneath people and, training plans, pay plans, stuff like that. If you offer it and give it, you can't take it away. You can't take it back.
They're more often to show up, or they're more likely to show up if you feed them well too.
There you go. There's an easy, cheap one. You know what? If there's free lunch out there, or if it's after hours free booze, you're probably going to have pretty good attendance, right? I like
feeding the whole class. It can get a little expensive.
Exactly. Yeah, Chubby, you learned that a long time ago. You give them some dinner, you give them some booze. They're like, you know what? Maybe I don't mind flying out there for this.
Yeah, well, if you're going to fly them, most of them feel honored if you're going to send them a distance and invest in them. Mm-hmm. They really become quite empowered by it. Jerry's right. If it's virtual, it's more challenging, and you really need to generate quizzes to make it interesting so they stay engaged in it. So that they're watching it and you can see the scores. But I think most really good service advisors realize that selling's not like riding a bicycle. You can be really good at it one day. You can suck terribly at it the next day. And it could be what's going on at home or how you feel. But, we all need to get tuned up. And the real good ones, they know that. And they're probably really honored that you would consider investing money in them to help them stay and get better. So for most of them, it's not that hard to get them to drink the Kool-Aid.
If it's the right person, right? It's the right person. They want to do this stuff anyways, and they're honored that you do it. If you have someone that's really against training, you either have someone that's got an attitude problem or an ego problem. Or
they went to a training class that was really terrible. Right?
Exactly. Have a bad taste.
See a lot of that where they've been to something, and it was a sales pitch on selling some kind of part, and I've never gone back to that. So, but once you get them to go to a really good class the first time and they participate and they become enthusiastic, and then they go home and typically at our school we see like 21% increase in ARO if you can just tune them up every year, and then they fall down during the year and go back to bad habits. So once they drink the Kool-Aid, that you got them, I think.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, here's kind of a unique question here. So one of our issues with sending techs to class is that they found that they get an opportunity to talk to other technicians. Some of that ends up being a positive thing, but other times they exchange numbers, payroll information, how busy they are, and it becomes problematic for us. Despite everyone being paid fair, this guy's got multiple locations. So some of them, I think he's talking about amongst themselves, not just other shops. Any solution to this?
It's a never-ending problem. It probably fares on the side of transparency to begin with, in that, if you have a lot of different comp plans and you're doing a lot of things different, or you're underpaying them and maybe you're making more margin than you should, as soon as you send them out there, they're going to get it, whether it's from a training class or having a beer at a bar with another guy that happens to be in the same industry. It is a problem. I can't. We see it. We and I have been in the middle of it.
But the worst thing that can happen is you don't train them. Right? What's the alternative? You don't train them at all.
You cage them in the back of the shop and throw some food back there, and then they can't communicate or have any outside communication.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it too is, hey, you know what? If you think that you're paying someone a fair wage and you're happy with it and you want to keep this person invested, and you really think it's a fair wage, you're willing to stand behind it, then I think that you'd be able to have that conversation and say, hey, Jerry, the reason that you're making $6 an hour less than Chris does is because Chris knows how to do this in his sleep. He's got a good attitude. He has zero comebacks. He does all the training. If you do all of that, you'll make the same money as Chris. You know, if, like you said, Joey, there's transparency to it of, hey, there's a reason, there's scales here, and here's where you're on the scale. If you are as good or think you're as good as Chris, then you're going to get paid as well as Chris. So that's a tricky one. I don't think, what does it say? Kim said one. The old saying is you can't steal a happy spouse. Exactly. If you have great culture and your ton of customers love you, it won't matter. Yeah. If you're taking care of the people and they're happy with where they are, then they're not going to look to jump ship. So.
Well, and I said in there, set the standard. You host the training instead of letting them go to other places like that. And be the shop that everybody wants to go to. One thing that I would add to that is if he's talking about his one shop talking to another shop and they're all his shops, then he needs to get in there seriously and do some processes and procedures and put a pay plan in. Hopefully that works for everybody. Sometimes that's not doable, but we have a group of shops in Colorado that's what we're working on. Everybody's following the same processes and procedures. Everybody's on the same play plan, culture, et cetera.
Yeah, because that's probably a tricky thing. If I'm at location 1 and I'm struggling to get 35 hours, not because I'm not productive, but I just don't have the cars. And I talk to a guy down at location 3 and he's like, I got more work than I know what to do with. I flagged 60 hours last week. That's going to be a bad conversation. And there's nothing that you can do to change that on the employee level, right? That's, you got to look in the mirror and say, well, we need to increase the cars at location 1 so they can't complain about that, because any human would complain about something like that.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one. So, Dan, I'm not sure we helped you with your question at all there, but everyone here is saying we feel your pain, and it does happen. There's things that we can do to minimize it, but it's the nature of the beast. It's probably the nature of the industry. Cool. That about wraps it up. If you guys have anything that you guys wanted to add here, but yeah, I just want to say thank you all again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been incredible, and I think people really got a lot out of this.
And no, thank you very much, Hunt, for considering me. Again, I've been a longtime client. Chubby, thank you. I've seen you talk, been a member of your program for a number of years. I don't know what you do. You never age. You're the same. I went back, I think in the 80s to Maryland and took many of your courses, and you look the same. So keep up the good work, whatever you're doing.
Jerry, that's very kind of you. It's probably been 30 years, but
yeah, probably.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been an honor. Thank you for everyone that joined us today. And yeah, I'll follow back. We'll get the recordings out probably later today or tomorrow, depends how long Zoom takes. And then a couple people asked about the slideshows. So as long as everyone's okay with that, we'll get those hosted for everyone too. So thanks again. Have a great day. Stay safe out there. And I'll talk to you all soon.
Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.